I'm going to ask for motion to re-enter open session.
I'll make that. Second,
Take a roll call vote. Mrs. Pavo,
yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Ms. Farnworth,
Yes.
and I vote yes. We are back in open session. I'm going to report out in executive session. The committee discussed litigation, the NEA contract, and something else. I guess that was really it. No votes were taken. I'm going to ask for a motion to seal the minutes.
Most seal the minutes.
Second,
Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Farnworth,
yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo.
Yes.
Okay, we are back in open session. Welcome to our March 30th, 2021 Tiverton School Committee meeting. I'm going to ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and you can bring your attention to the flag behind Mrs. Pavo. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Just pull up my agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So
Make that
moved.
motion,
Ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Farnworth,
yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to move up item number 9A and 9B.
I'll make that motion to move up items 9A and 9B.
I'll second it.
Any opposed? I will take that as unanimous. So item 9A is the photo club. Mr. Ashley, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity this evening to introduce and propose our new photo club. So we have with us Miss Woolbright, our art teacher, and our two student leaders. And so I will actually turn it over to Miss Woolbright to introduce the club and our student leaders.
Hey everybody, it's nice to meet you all. So these wonderful young men, Sam and Jackson, came to me towards the beginning of the year and just explained that they have a big passion for photography, and they think there's a need for a club so that other people can, share that passion and grow their skills together. So Jackson and Sam, if you guys want to say just a little bit about what we hope to do with this club.
I'll start. So around this time last year, I had the idea that we should probably have a photography club. I thought it was a little silly that we didn't already. And so I started preparing some ideas, and eventually I figured I should talk to Sam because he's a close friend of mine and he's also very passionate about photography. And we came up with a sort of plan for what the club would entail and how it would function. And I'll turn it over to Sam to explain how this plan would work.
Thank you, Jackson, and thank you, Ms. Woolbright and Mr. Ashley. Good evening to you all. So you're probably asking, how would this club actually be run? It would be run mostly by me and Jackson with oversight from Ms. Woolbright. And it would mostly function as just a place for people who'd like to take pictures to share any tips or just general photos. And the way we would do that is on a meeting by meeting basis. So the meeting prior to the current meeting, let's say, the group would decide on a theme or a prompt to take pictures. And the next meeting, we would all take pictures. We would all have pictures and share them with each other. Through that, we would be able to provide constructive criticism, maybe some tips that we found along the way, and just really anything. At the end of the day, the photo club is really to provide constructive criticism and improve skills, our skills as photographers, and hopefully spread the idea of photography itself.
And to have some fun doing it.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you very much, Ms. Fulbright. I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the committee. And again, thank you, all three of you, for your initiative and dedication to this endeavor. So, Mr. Dakotas, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so Sam and Jackson, I think it's a great idea. As I age in life, I also have a little bit of a penchant for photography. Not something I had when I was definitely your guys' age, but I'm getting better at even using my iPhone for photography. So I think it's a great idea. And I'm extremely appreciative of both of your passion to bring this to others. So thanks. And, I hope it's going to be a big success.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Ms. Fava?
Yes, gentlemen, I have a couple of questions. My first question is, how would there be some criteria for what you would photograph? Or would that be left up to the members of the club? And my other question was, you don't have to take photography as a class to be part of the photo club, do you?
I can take this one, Sam. So, no, the photography club is meant to be not an alternative completely, but it's meant to be a separate experience from the photography class. And
Okay.
if somebody just doesn't want to take the photography class but likes photography, they can join the club. It's probably going to be a little bit more laid back, and there aren't any deadlines or anything.
Mhm.
And it's going to be different enough so that you can join the club and take the class and get two different things out of them.
Good.
And to answer the first question, the prompt or theme of the next batch of pictures would be mostly voted on, or maybe me and Sam would have, say, a selection of ideas that we could shoot on, and the club would provide a vote.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Elaine. Mrs. Farnworth?
I will echo everyone else's commentary with regard to the fact that it's a great idea. Thank you for coming up with it. Kind of surprised we didn't already have it. So I learn something new every day. And thank you, Ms. Woolbright, for agreeing to advise this group.
Of course.
The question I have for you two gentlemen, right? We're on the doorstep of April. What year were you in your high school, Kath?
We are sophomores.
You're both sophomores? Okay, great. So there would be no concern over it losing momentum between now and next year then. I have to assume that you'll intend to pick it up in September and probably try to get even more folks interested in participating.
Most certainly, yes.
Great, great. How many kids do you have now that you think would be interested?
I reckon possibly 10 to 15.
That's a decent sized group, certainly to start.
Certainly.
Right. Congratulations and best of luck with it.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Again, thank you, gentlemen, and Ms. Wilbright. Any questions or comments from the public, Mr. Carnavale?
Not at this time, Dr. Lockman.
Okay, and any questions or comments from our administrators? Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the club.
I'll make that motion to approve the photo club.
I will second it.
Okay, thank you. Ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Pava?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So again, congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your initiative. and coming to speak with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations, Sam Jackson. Ms. Wilbright, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're up to item 9B, the virtual arts pathway. Mr. Ashley.
Yes, thank you. Really excited to introduce Mr. Tracy and our proposal for a new visual arts pathway. Tonight's presentation is really the culmination of many months of planning, research, and discussion. I know Mr. Tracy has a presentation plan to talk about the details and the experience that hopefully our students will be able to pursue. Mr. Tracy, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ashley. Good evening to the school committee members, Dr. Sanchioni, and anybody else watching tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Adam Tracy, and I'm one of the art teachers at the high school. Tonight, I'll be presenting a new pathway for our high school students who are interested in pursuing art as a career. So I'm going to share my screen here and go through these slides. And then when I'm finished, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So I present the visual arts pathway endorsement for your approval tonight. And this pathway would be for students who want to pursue an career as an artist. The visual art pathway endorsement would certify that a student has deep learning in the visual arts. And when they're finished with this, they would be ready to go right into the workforce and start working as an artist, or if not, to go on to attain a degree in the arts. I'm going to kind of explain a little bit about what the requirements they must meet, and then I'll break those down a little bit better for you. Basically, visual art pathway requirements, there's 3 of them, would be their academic studies. So this would be a sequence of art courses that are designed to push the young artist to grow. Through those courses, they'd be working with industry partners to gain a deeper understanding of opportunities that they would have in careers, and also just learning from folks who are already working in the industry. And finally, again, through these courses, they'd also be creating a portfolio of work to sort of demonstrate their growth through the pathway. So as I said, I'll explain each of these a little bit more in depth for you. So the first one is the sequence of art courses. Any student in this pathway must successfully complete courses from each of the levels that are listed here. The first level, level 1, would be Introduction to Art, which is the course that all of our students take if they want to take any upper level courses. So anybody who's in the pathway would have to successfully finish Intro to Art. These lessons are really kind of tailored to teach the elements and principles of art and design. So in these lessons, we're learning about line, value, color, sort of the building blocks to be able to be a successful artist. Once they've done that, they would take either Art 2 or Graphic Art and Design, which is actually a new course we're going to be offering next year. The difference here is these courses meet every day, and there's a much more in-depth exploration of fine art concepts and techniques. I also just want to say before I go to the next level that in this level 2, while it says that most students can take Art 2 or Graphic Art and Design, most of our kids I could see probably taking both of those courses. But they would really only need to take one in order to get the endorsement. Finally, in their junior or senior year, they would be taking Advanced Studio, which is an honors course. And again, there's still kind of, these are more involved projects with an emphasis on the individual artist. So it's really cool to see these Advanced Studio projects where I present an idea and the final product is very much different depending on the artist, the student artist. So through all of these courses, Intro, Art 2, or Graphic Design, or Advanced Studio, we'll be working with industry partners, and we'll be glad. So they'll directly be learning from artists who are making a career doing what they love. And that could be through studio visits where we get to go see where they work and what artists are working on. It could be an artist talk where they could come into the school once COVID is through. But really, through COVID, we've learned how easy it is to jump on a Zoom call with somebody and ask questions and learn from artists. We'll also be doing some collaborative projects with these artists. And again, over these years, 3 or 4 years in this pathway, these students really get to see some different career opportunities that they may want to pursue. And then again, finally, the last requirement is that through all of these artists, these students will be creating an artist portfolio, which will be an individualized portfolio highlighting the breadth and the depth of their knowledge as an artist. So what's great about this is they can kind of self-assess. They can look at where they were, how much they've grown, maybe where they need to work a little bit harder. And also it'll be great for future employment. They already have a portfolio that they can show to client. And they can also use this for acceptance into a secondary education program. So those would be basically the 3 requirements for a student to get this endorsement on their transcript or their resume. And as I wrap up here, I'll talk a little bit about the implementation of this pathway and sort of where I could see this going looking ahead. So first I want to say it's actually going to be quite easy to implement this because we're already doing this. We already every year have 12 to 15 students who take art every year. They're putting all this work in. They're just not really getting the notoriety saying that they've done this deep learning in our art program. So this will be giving them the recognition that they deserve. So upon your approval tonight, we would start enrolling students, our incoming freshmen, that they could choose to be in the art pathway. We could also see some of our students who are already currently enrolled, sophomores and juniors who have already taken some of these courses, as long as they can get the hours in with the industry partners and work on a portfolio, that we could be giving some of our students who are already enrolled the endorsement. And I'm hoping in the future to, we've just added this graphic art and design course, which the enrollment in it is great. I'm hoping to offer some more graphic design and technology courses, and I could see in the not so distant future also offering a visual arts and CTE program. So I'll say I appreciate your time tonight. I hope you guys are as excited about it as I am, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tracy. I think we are as excited as you are about this. Maybe I should have a more excited voice instead of that. I'm supposed to be known for my even-handedness. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions from our committee members first. Mr. Dakotas?
Thank you. So I don't have any questions per se. Thank you for the presentation. I think one of the questions we asked about the photo club, how many students, if I missed that, you envision this affecting or helping?
As I sort of said, every year I've been at the high school for a while now, and I would say that every year we get a ton of freshmen who take art classes, and then they kind of go on to take some other things they're interested in. But every year we have about 12 to 15 students who take art every year. And as a high school art teacher, it's really great that I get to see these kids grow for 4 years. I have these same kids for 4 years. And we send a lot of kids to art school. I mean, we send about 7 or 8 kids to art school every year, and teaching for as long as I have been, I know a lot of former students who are really happy in the careers that they're involved in right now, and I'm in contact with a lot of them. Some of them, former students, will actually be some of the industry folks that our current students will be learning from. So I'm excited to see who enrolls in this, but I could see the numbers being, about 20 students and higher right away.
That's great. I just have another curious question. Do you think this is one of the reasons why sometimes we lose students to other schools, namely private schools, because of our lack of offerings in art? Do you think
I
this
would
is something that starts to bolster our offerings and keeps more kids interested in staying here versus looking at something somewhere else?
Sure, absolutely. I don't say that we lack in offering art classes right now, but we have a really strong art program, and this is just sort of the next step to make it stronger.
Okay.
And there's some really exciting things going on and on our floor in the high school, which is the tech ed floor. There's plenty of reasons for people to be coming to Tiverton High School. There's some really exciting things going on. So yeah, I agree that we could certainly be a draw to not be losing any students.
Yeah, that's a better word, a draw.
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree. Anything we can do, the more offerings that we can have to pique interest of students is great. So thank you. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think if we are to offer a CTE program in the future, we really could be offering one of the best art programs in the state, and we could be drawing other students from other districts to be coming to us because we really could be known for to be an art district.
That's great. Thank you for your feedback and your presentation.
Mrs. Pavo?
Mr. Tracy, I'm very excited to hear about this. I know how much you put into everything you do and your passion, you pass that along to people, with your presentation. I'm excited to have another pathway for the kids to choose to go to. I think the numbers will climb. And it can only make Tiverton High School a better place and Tiverton. So I appreciate all that you've ever done for us, Adam. You put all of your passion into everything you do every day in serving the kids of our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Pavo. It's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Elaine. Mrs. Farnworth?
Well, I cannot top Mrs. Pavo's accolades, Mr. Tracy, but I can tell you as a former parent of a student and from a community member that your efforts are well known throughout the area. And your statement that you could potentially attract students to Tiverton, I don't doubt it for a second. So in that regard, thank you and keep up the great work. I also think, and I'm not telling you anything, I'm sure that there really is no shortage of local artists that I'm sure might be willing and able to help you and your students as they pursue these pathways. I can think of 3 or 4 like this, and I'm not involved in the arts. Question for you, would a student be able to, for this portfolio project, if you will, would they also be able to do double duty on that as their senior project?
In some of our meetings with Mr. Ashley and myself and Judy Moore, our department head, that's come up. I'm not sure if we have an actual answer on that, but there has been the discussion of could that, instead of them also having to do senior project, could this portfolio sort of be their keystone piece that sort of takes care of that requirement for them, since they're doing so much work for this portfolio.
I mean,
So
I can see two sides to the argument. Certainly they are. They're doing a lot of work, and their product, I'm sure, is usually fantastic. But on the same side, the senior project is supposed to give them a stretch
Sure.
goal, and I'm not sure how much of a stretch more continued artwork is. So great discussion I'm sure you're all having. Interesting to see how that works out. Again, just congratulations, and I would certainly be a proponent of a CTE program should that come to be. I would also like us to continue to explore additional CTE programs that could help our students truly have a wide range of choices. I do envision someday almost every student having access to CTE, regardless of what their intended path is. so that they can, really learn something in depth outside of the reading, writing, and arithmetic. So I think it's all right steps, right direction, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. So, yeah. So
Gary, you call me Elaine one more time tonight.
did I do that again?
How come
Third time.
he can't get the in?
Huh.
Ah, my hair's brown.
One can only speculate on what's going on there. So, I'll echo my three colleagues on the committee. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Tracy, for all of this. And frankly, I have to express my gratitude to all of the art teachers in our district. I've continued to be impressed by everything that comes out of that I see coming out of the middle school and the high school and the elementary schools. So really well done. Two quick questions, I guess. One is, do you have the opportunity to collaborate more directly with the middle school and sort of working on the program? Does that, do you guys have an opportunity to articulate a little bit with them?
That discussion hasn't really happened yet. So far all of our meetings have been trying to get this off the ground and kind of see where it goes. But there certainly is hope to get the middle school involved this as well, and even more so if we do go the CTE route with this, to really get the middle school involved in that sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, because you've got some really strong partners there, I think so.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have a really strong art program in Tiverton,
Yeah.
and we have some great teachers all the way through.
Okay, and this is sort of more kind of just curious. Do you now, or do you have potential to have any kind of collaboration with Rhode Island School of Design or some of the art world in Providence, which is pretty active as well, I know?
Yeah, we have some students who have graduated from RISD, not in not so long ago, that I could reach out to. I don't have that many connections to RISD per se, but I do have, as an artist myself, and I also have a nonprofit art organization that's pretty successful. I have a lot of connections with different artists. The Avenue Concept, which is another art organization out of Providence, I've done some work with, and they're really great people. And these are some of the people that I plan to pull in. There's also a studio, the Frog and Toad printing studio out of Providence, that I plan to pull in as well. So not RISD, I don't have those connects right now, but I do have many other folks that I'll be pulling in from all around the state.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you very much for all your work in past, present, and future. Any questions from any of our administrators? And any questions from the public, Mr. Carnevale?
We do have a couple of comments, Dr. Larkin. One
Okay.
comment was came after the photo club approval, was a congratulations to Jackson and Sam on a great job in their presentation from an Anna Palumbo. And in regards to this talk, Mrs. Black said, congratulations, Mr. Tracy, on moving forward with a visual arts pathway. Sounds like an amazing opportunity for our students at THS. And I buy stuff from Frog and Toad. So.
All right, great. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the pathway.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, maybe that's why, because you keep on making the motion and then seconding. Right.
Oh, okay.
Any additional
go with that.
discussion? Okay. I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas?
Absolutely, yes.
Mrs. Babo?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
I vote yes. So again, thank you very much, Mr. Tracy and Mr. Ashley, and everybody who is working on these great programs for our students. So while I look for someone else to call Elaine, when we return to our agenda, we are at item number 7, policy development, revision, and review. I'm going to take up policy number 221, policy dissemination. This is the second reading. I'll ask for a motion to approve to open the discussion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. And again, once again, thanks to our policy subcommittee. Any discussion on the part of the committee? I'll leave the floor open to
I
anyone.
have one question, and
Okay.
I intended actually call Dr. Sanquioni on this, and I just forgot. I had a note on it, sorry. Okay, so on the last paragraph in red, it states the school policy manual. I believe it should read the school committee policy manual. Could you
Believe that is
insert the
correct.
word committee? Dr.
That's correct.
Sanquioni?
We certainly can make that change, add that word.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Any comments from the public, Mr. Carnavale?
Not at this time.
Any comments from our administrators? Okay, I'm going to take call for a vote. All those opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. And we move on to item 7B, policy number 1145, service animal policy.
I'll make a motion that we accept new policy 1145, service animal policy.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion on the part of the committee?
I do have one question. It's a fairly lengthy policy. In the event, Dr. Sanquioni, that a student who has a service animal, I did read throughout that the school isn't responsible for the well-being, if you will, and care of the animal during the day. But if the animal needs to relieve itself, and the student doesn't have a designated aid, how's that going to be worked out? I mean, obviously, 6-7 hours a day without being able to do that might be difficult. Just trying to understand how that would work.
I'm just taking a moment. It's addressed in the policy.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought I read that if the service animal is not able to be cared for by the person, then it falls to the aid, or they have to have some provision there. Did I misread
Yeah,
that?
it's 15B.
Okay, and and I'm not familiar with service dogs, to be honest. Would the school allow the animal to have water available?
Yeah, I think we'd always be humanistic to any animal, sure.
Okay,
Sure, we can work, yeah.
okay. So those are my only questions.
Yeah, last thing we need is the ASPCA after us.
No.
All right, any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the public? Ms. Delcourt, I see you're present now.
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, and any questions for our administrators? All right, I'm gonna ask for a vote. Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. Again, thank you to our policy subcommittee. All right, item 7C, policy 1109, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act Policy and Procedures. Ask for motion to approve.
I'll make that motion to approve policy 1109, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA policy and procedure.
Is there a second?
I'll
Somebody?
make the second.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from our administrators? Any questions or comments from the public, Ms. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote. Any opposed? And I will take that as unanimous. And then lastly, item 7D, policy number 333, spending plan transfer funds authority. I'll ask for motion to approve.
I'll make the motion that we approve policy 333, spending plan transfer of funds authority.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Elaine. I mean, Mike. All right. Any questions or comments from on the committee? I gotta do something. All right. Any questions or comments from our administrators? And any questions or comments from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. Any opposed? I will take that as unanimous. All right. We're up to item 8A, old business. FY22 budget update funding formula. Dr. Sanquioni?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to share my screen with you momentarily, give you a couple slides to look at, just giving you an update on the FY22 budget. Okay. And Dave, you're going to have to move that for me? Yes, you are. Okay, keep going. This is all old information. Keep going. Okay, stop there. I'll go back one, Dave. So just reminding the committee that, again, we're seeking a $33.9 million budget. It's what's in essence a level service budget, returning the current staff that we employ, all our educational programs. And currently what we're doing, not adding anything new to that. Again, you're very familiar with this number. We presented it over and over. And again, recognizing that the school committee right now has voted a $32.5 million budget, but knowing that the needs of the school are 33.9. I just want to make that distinction, as we know we're going into the budget committee on Thursday night and certainly advocating for the 33.9, but I want to make that distinction that we're recognizing your vote of 32.5. And this is the update for you today. These are all the funds that we've received so far from the federal government. Amy Rodrick's covered this prior, but I wanted to outline it for you here. You can see the top three numbers were directed at COVID mitigation. Those are funds we've actually used in FY21. So it's not really part of FY22, but I wanted to list them. But the money that we would have available for FY22, as we know right now, is $763,284. Certainly that would be applied to the $33.9 million budget, whatever it is, it helps gets us there. Remind the committee I gave you, and it's in your packet, a detailed list about this money. The three key factors are, we know we're receiving it. We do not know how it can be used yet. We're still waiting for guidance from RIDE on that. And thirdly, it's one-time money. So if we do apply it to our FY22 budget, it certainly fills a hole for a year, but it also creates that structural deficit that we're trying to overcome eventually. So that's our funds to date. There is another document that's out there that talks about an amount that the school department might receive, but that document's never been verified. There's no other information regarding that that's come through both my professional organizations and Ms. Rodrick's professional organization. So we're not putting that on here yet because we just don't have any confirmation that we're receiving. Now we think it's coming. We know, we're pretty sure it is. But again, we want to be absolutely sure before we put any amounts out there. And I want to just show you one more slide. And you've seen this. Again, this is a success story. This is why the Tiverton Public Schools are one of the first and only school districts in Rhode Island that opened in October with all our students in K-12 and has remained open throughout the school year because we did everything possible to make our environment as safe as possible. And that came with a cost. That came with a cost of over $500,000. So even though, when you go back a slide, Dave, we received the 265,978 to offset that. That's basically about half of what we spent. So move it ahead again, Dave. Out of that 550, we received half. The other half of that we had to find in this year's budget, really unbudgeted amounts, but we made it work because we believe that having our students in school was the most important thing we can do. And again, we've proven that we created a safe environment. So you can go back one more slide, Dave. The update was really comprised in this slide here. Funds for FY21, but really funds for our next year at 763. But the three key points I'll reiterate again. We know we're receiving it. We don't know what the limitations are on that yet. We have not received guidance. And lastly, it's one-time money. So I'll pause there before we go into the funding formula. If you have any questions.
I'm sure there's lots of questions. I'm just not sure I know what the answers are or that I like the answers. I'm going to open it up to the committee. Mr. Dakotas?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Mrs. Pavo?
No, I have no questions.
Mrs. Farnworth?
I only have one, and I know you said this, Dr. Secchione. The ESSER 2 funds, they are the result of the Trump administration stimulus plan from the latter half of the fall. Is that correct?
December, yes.
Oh, so that was, so, and their intention is to not make any of these funds available till FY22?
We're not sure when they're going to become available, but we know that they can be used for FY22. And looking at our FY21 budget and the fact that we're already into April, we don't see a need to apply them to FY21. And we know we have that great potential deficit in FY22, excuse me. So it seems prudent that that's where we should be looking at these funds to be applied.
But we also want to recapture any unreimbursed COVID expenses. Right?
Yeah, again, I think the guidance is going to be the key to this, right? And how we can use it.
Okay. And I'll be happy to wait on that. I wouldn't want to assume anything. Okay.
Mrs. Farnworth, the expected, I guess, ETA of the application and guidance for the grants is at the earliest, somewhere around April 15th. That's per the Director of Finance at RIDE, Mark Dunham, on our RIASBO call as of last Thursday. They are still waiting to get guidance from the U.S. Department of Education on how it can be used. And then they will then set up the application and we can apply for it and spend it accordingly. So it's everyone is in a giant holding pattern in this regard.
And would that also mean that the next round, just recently enacted, will take months and months more before we will have
potentially? I guess it depends on how quickly the federal administration wants to get the money out. I do believe that the changes in administration had something to do with the delay in ESSER 2. It was passed by Trump, but it's now being administered by the Biden administration.
Right.
But I also know that they want to get the money out, but that I also know that they are also working out like the spending periods. So for example, it's not all, while we may be spending the 763 in FY22, the spending periods may go out to 23 and 24. They're actually trying to sort of stretch out the spending a little bit. And then, so right now in this particular case, with the education funding, it's still with the U.S. Department of Education. So we kind of have to follow their guidance as well as what passes through RIDE.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to try and recapitulate this a little bit because it, I think, is worth doing so for my own sanity, and perhaps this is some of the questions that the public has. So we received $265,978 as part of the CARES Act or whatever in the spring and fall, but we also were made whole with state aid. That's what a lot of the money that was initially released in the spring and summer did. And then the 763,284, that is money that we know we have coming, but we have not yet received. Is that correct, Ms. Roderick?
That's correct.
Okay. And yet there is still money from ESSER 2 that there has to still yet be an application process for?
That is one and the same, the 763. So what happens is when this money is in effect a federal grant. And so we actually have to apply for it through Acela grants like we do all of our other Title I and IDEA grants and so forth. So it flows from the U.S. Department of Education to RIDE, who then basically digests the spending requirements and the timelines, and then puts it into Acela grants. And we have to actually, I'll say, apply for it in that we have to indicate how we are going to use that money. And so once we do that, it goes to a program review, what they call a program review, which is basically approving how we're going to spend the money. Then it goes to a financial review, basically saying we are in alignment with the requirements of the directive that came with the funding. And then we spend the money and get reimbursed. So the quote unquote application from RIDE related to ESSER 2, the 763,000 has not yet been provided to us by RIDE.
Okay. And what is the delay in that process? I mean, it's probably above your pay grade, but.
Well, as I mentioned to Mrs. Farnworth, part of that I do believe stems from the change in administration. The ESSER 2 money was passed under President Trump. Right. Back in November, December. I said December, but it might have been November, back last fall. And with the changing in the, like the Secretary of Education and, the cabinet members for President Biden, and presumably, I'm guessing, a new staff or some form of staff at a higher level at the U.S. Department of Education, by the time they got that all settled and then went back and read the laws and all of that of the ESSER 2 funding, it's just taken them a while to digest, the intent of the law and then how to translate that into practical applications. So, and RIDE has been waiting anxiously as well, and it's still with the U.S. Department of Education.
And in the last stimulus package passed, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago, there was more money for local government and education.
Correct.
You have no idea what that may or may not result in.
None. What I do know is that so far for ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, the allocations of those stimulus monies was based on our Title I percentages. So, every community, depending on how much Title I funding they get, they use that as the basis for the formula to distribute it. My understanding right now is that they will do the same for the ARP, which is the American Recovery Plan, I believe it's called, or Stimulus 3. I believe they will be doing the same thing. It's just that the dollar amounts awarded or the dollar amounts in the package are that much bigger. So my understanding in speaking with the finance director at RIDE, ESSER 2, this was supposed to be 3 to 4 times that of ESSER 1, which, as you can see, the 763 versus the 233, that was roughly correct. And purportedly, the ARP is at least double ESSER 2. But we haven't seen any concrete numbers as yet.
And there's additional money that will probably be going first through the legislature and then through the town as well. Do we know anything about that?
I do not. It's possible, but I don't believe that that's the case.
Okay.
So if I might, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mrs. Farnworth, please.
Dr. Larkin, listening to the town council meeting last night, the town administrator indicated that the schools, I don't know how he would know this more than us, but he does apparently. The schools he's saying are in line to get 1.8 million on this third package. And I realize none of it is in stone, but he made that public last night, as well as the town receiving 1.5 million of its own for municipal needs.
I see. Okay.
So Dr. Larkin, so I spoke with Mrs. Farnworth earlier today, and she brought that to my attention, and I did some research. That figure was put out by the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and it says right in the notice that they provided that they are estimated grants only, and they're not intended to predict specific amounts that LEAs would receive. I want to make sure we make that clear, that even though it was announced as presumably announced as a sure thing that that's what we were going to get, the documentation that I've received said that it's just an estimate, and that they're still possibly gathering additional information in order to make those final allocations. So while if you take that along with what I said earlier, that the ARP is double ESSER 2, presumably is what we're hearing, it sort of comes close to that number. Nothing has been verified. Nothing has gone through RIDE. Nothing has gone through the Rhode Island legislature. So I want to just make that clear, that this is just purely an estimate put out by the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns.
Thank you for looking into that, Amy.
Yeah, I know that. I agree. That's an important, very important point. And those are sort of the numbers I had seen as well from RIASC, which, well, actually are a little bit lower for the school district, but I guess we shall see. I think perhaps most significant part about that is that none of this actually fits in time-wise with the rather unique budget process of Tiverton. So I think we still have very big knots to untangle.
And I think we all have to remember, without a doubt, that this is one-time money.
Right.
And much
That's
of it will be prescribed to us how to spend it. For example, that at least 20% of it will be by law used to assist students who have student loss over this period, right?
Learning loss.
Students get learning loss. Thank you.
Right.
That's very specific within the law, and without knowing what the other mandates with regard to these funds is, it is very difficult to even make any kind of plan for it.
Right. Right. It does not really solve the chronic budget problems.
No, it does not.
Dr. Larkin, my understanding, again, I heard this secondhand from the about the town presenting that the schools would be getting this 1.7 or 1.8 million dollars, and that it should somehow either alleviate or have us not create a structural deficit. In so many words, I'm paraphrasing. I'd like to make it clear that the structural deficit we have, as we know, well predates where we are right now, and that any funds that we get pursuant to stimulus funding is, again, to be repetitive, one-time funding. And so that structural deficit still remains.
Right. Right. Okay. I think, Dr. Singer, I think in our budget presentations, I think one of the other things we probably should be including, at least in terms of talking about the 32.5 versus 33.9, But to go back to where we were in FY, and I'm going to screw this up probably, 19 and 20, and what the initial projection for the increase for FY21 was by the budget committee last March, and then it ended up being flat funded. I think that's an important issue to always bring up. So, there was no, the flat funding basically created a bigger structural deficit through our contractual obligations to our teachers and other staff, that were in those contracts and the steps in the lane increases. So.
Yeah, we certainly could add that in, and that deficit was what caused 24.2 positions to be eliminated last year,
Right.
or this year.
And then lastly, I guess, and then I'll be quiet, call somebody else Elaine, is we need to start to grapple, because I don't think we will have any real sense of where we are fiscally, even though the financial town referendum is now put into July and sort of everything backs up from that. So we don't have, we would be kind of finalizing the budget at this point in most years. We have more time, but it's not going to be enough time unless, first of all, the state changes something about when we have to have, and I don't believe they have. Amy, has the state changed the date by which we have to have a balanced budget? It's usually June 30th, I thought.
I have not heard any changes.
Right. So that has to be addressed. But I don't think we're going to have the time, even so, to solve these problems. So we have to start to grapple with, what happens if we are flat funded again this year? What happens if we get the 32.5 that we can ask by request? And why 33.9 is really the question that Tiverton should be pondering. So that delta there we're going to need to know where that's going to come from before people can actually make a reasonable decision about what they support.
Dr. Larkin, one thing, and I know this will probably lead into the next part of the presentation, but one of the things that we're grappling with this year is an anticipated reduction in state aid.
Correct.
And it's significant. And I think it's something that has to, stay in the forefront of our discussions as we talk to the budget committee and talk to the voters of Tiverton as well.
And to our legislative delegation. Yeah. Okay. Any questions from our administrators? And any questions from the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. So I guess the last, unless it comes up in. Yep, go ahead.
Jerry, are we going to go over the state aid presentation? That's part of, I think, this item on the agenda, or is there a different?
The second part of A, Dr. Larkin, is the funding formula.
Yep. Yeah. Peter?
So let me turn it over to Ms. Roderick to take you through that.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here, and I apologize in advance. This is highly technical because it's a formula, so I apologize for all the math and all of that, but hopefully I can talk you through it quickly and so that it makes complete sense, we hope. Bear with me 1 second, please. So can everyone see that?
Not too well, to tell you the truth. I can see it, but I can't read it. That's better.
Okay. Hang on.
Can you zoom out a little bit?
Close your right hand box.
Amy, if you click on the view option, and then you click on, when you click that view drop down, that's, file edit view.
I'm sorry, view and what?
At
When
the
you click
top.
view, yeah, at the top, if you click the view drop down,
Yeah.
there's a full screen mode and a read mode. If you choose one of those, it'll blow it up bigger.
How's that? Is that better?
It's in the PDF menu.
No, I understand. Is that better?
No,
Oh, mine is a little.
Okay.
Close your right hand box and then just hit the positive button, the plus button up top.
All right, so
I think there's a little arrow on the where all the icons on the right. Move that over.
all right, bear with me 1 second. I'm sorry, Dr. Larkin, what did you ask me to do, please?
So on the right hand, there's a bunch of icons: export PDF, create PDF. So there's an arrow in the middle of the screen there that you can just move that over. That'll make it.
Which I have already done on mine, so that's why I'm a little confused. Dave, could I ask you to put this slide up just to make things easier, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If you want to stop sharing, that's fine.
All right, so why is this not helping me here? Here we go. Okay, is that better for everyone?
No, that's worse for me.
it's as good as you're gonna get it.
Mine was better before, but okay, I'll deal with it.
Okay. Well, I did also provide this in the packet, if you care to follow along. I'm not going to go over every single number, but I did do a 5-year history of the state funding. The funding formula has several elements to it. The first of which is how they calculate our foundation. The state has a per pupil cost, which you can see for FY22 at the very top is $10,635. That number is an average provided by the National Center for Education Statistics and is an average for Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. Why they decided on that average, I'm not quite sure. But it is probably the most representative of a per pupil cost for students in Rhode Island. When you take that and we multiply it by the enrollment of the 1,758 students, we get core instruction funding of the 18.7 million that you see on the first line. They also add what they call a student success factor, which is that core instruction amount times 40% times the number of students that you have in the free and reduced lunch program. And that gives us, that's their indicator of poverty, and I'm using sort of air quotes in that. And that gives us a foundation of the $20 million for 37. Then we have to calculate, okay, so that's our foundation formula for the foundation. Now we have to calculate the state share ratio for each community. And again, so that's the section in the middle with the blue figures. So it's a formula, as you can see, 1 minus 47.5% times what they call district E-wave over state E-wave. And E-wave is the equalized weight assessed valuations of the town and the state divided by the basically enrollment, the what they call the average daily membership, which is basically, I guess you could call it enrollment. I'll go back to that term. And so when you calculate the formula, the state share ratio for Tiverton in FY22 is 38.9%. Now, it's important to note that the equalized weight assessed valuation, I did not provide the full calculation of that in here because I believe it complicates the message. However, it's important to note that when they use the valuation provided by the municipalities, they also adjust that valuation for median family income as provided by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so they come up to what they call sort of an equalized, adjusted valuation for each town. And that's important to note because in Tiverton, it basically has said that Tiverton is, and again, I'm using air quotes here, it can afford to pay more for their education, hence going from 44.9% in 21 to 38.9% in 22. And that is primarily a function of the fact that property values went up and presumably median family income went up. Now, I will say you can either agree with that or disagree with that, but this is all sort of statistically based and calculated. I'm not sure. I don't understand it to be subjective in any way, although I'm not privy to sort of all the final calculations. So I'm going to stop there before I get into the latter part of the calculation, see if anyone has any questions so far.
Any questions from the committee, if you dare to?
I will confess, I did call Amy on this because my assumption going along was that our reduction was probably tied directly to a loss of students. And that does not appear to be the case. And I do want to thank Amy for putting this presentation together. This was a lot of work on her end, and I'm sure it took her many hours to put it together so that we can understand. I think it's important that we do understand why our state aid is going to be reduced next year, in that we have a responsibility to fund our schools. And I think this is, in essence, the state telling us we have to.
Yeah, that's a good point, Diane. It's not that the state is saying all of a sudden that education costs less, or that it should cost less, or that we shouldn't be trying to improve things. It is actually an assessment. Again, I think Amy made this point both subtly and well, that you can kind of argue with the opinion here, but it is fairly objectively arrived at, which is that from the point of view of what the state is willing to allocate to us, they are saying the town should be able to bear more cost of the education. That is the bottom line. And I guess that is maybe is something that happens when you chronically don't continue to bear that cost, or just choose not to bear that cost. What we have done for the last 10 years, most of our increases have come from increases in state aid. Chickens are home to roost, I suppose. Anyone else from the committee? And any of our administrators? Manny is saying it all with his face. Anything from the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, I'll turn the floor back over to Ms. Roderick.
Thank you, Dr. Larkin. And thank you, Mrs. Farnworth. I appreciate your comments. So the last piece of the formula here is, so now that the formula indicates that, that Tiverton is being expected to fund more of the education in the town. There is now what they call the state share ratio, where basically and again, this is getting into, I think, algebra, 10th grade algebra, the quadratic mean of that figure. And when I say that, this is essentially, for very, very simple and demonstrative purposes, a smoothing element that they use, so that while on the one hand, our state share ratio for our community went from 44.9% to 38.9%, the actual state share ratio went from 37 to 33. So it's a little bit better, but not by much. And so what they do is they take the state share ratio by the community and square it. And then they take the pre-K through 6 poverty factor, which is enrollment of pre-K through 6 students in the federal free and reduced lunch program. Divide that by 2 and take the square root. I think someone had considerable time on their hands, but that's what the formula has for right now. And if you look at how I've calculated it versus what the state aid documents say per the RIDE website, we're off only by small amounts. And I'm sure that just has to do with the rounding factor and the decimal points. And then it shows you what exactly the difference between what was enacted, excluding high cost special ed and the multi-language learner funding. And you'll notice that in FY20, we kind of have a big difference of roughly 152,000. All of that, or actually more of that, the calculation, if you recall, was adjusted and backfilled with some of the stimulus money that we got. So that's why that's a bit different than what was originally calculated and originally posted by RIDE. So again, I do want to make the comment about enrollment. As of right now, while it has not formally, to my understanding, not formally been passed in terms of holding us harmless for the enrollment changes, you'll notice that enrollment for 21 and 22 are identical. For purposes of the formula right now, they have kept the enrollment what it was in what they used in 21, so as not to have an impact or a decrease related to COVID. My understanding is that has not yet been officially passed by the legislature, but I believe it's expected to be done so that there's no further loss in state aid for every community, in fact. So, so at that point, I will leave it again open for questions if there are any.
So any questions from the committee?
Well, Amy, I actually, that was a question I had for you, and I'm glad to hear that the state won't be penalizing districts for drops in enrollment this year, really due to COVID. So that's actually room to breathe a little bit. I certainly keep us surprised on the progress of that. And I guess I'll just point out to all the 9th and 10th grade students out there who ask their parents, why do I have to take algebra? because someday you might want to be a school business manager and you will have real life application.
You will have real life application of algebra. Yes.
I know I heard that story a few times in my life, and here you go. People really do use it.
We really do use it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on the committee? Mike, Elaine?
No, thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public, Ms. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
And any questions or comments from our administrators? Okay, well, again, thank you very much, Ms. Roderick.
You're welcome.
And I'll echo Diane's comments. This was an enormous amount of work and pretty complicated, and one has to love it when you start to use square roots.
Thank
And
you. Great job.
I'm the district's resident numbers nerd, so we're good.
all right. All right. We are now up to item 8B, FY21 budget to actual. So Ms. Roderick, you're on again.
Thank you. Dave, if you could put up the budget to actual for me, please. So I was asked, I believe, earlier in the year that at the, I believe the second meeting of every month to provide a budget to actual for the current year as compared to the prior year. Given that we are closing in on, at this point, the end of the 9th month, I took the liberty in this particular case of asking my staff, Carolyn and Dottie, to make sure that as of St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, that all of our expenses were in, all of our expenses for invoices that we had received as of that date were in and posted, so that we can get a better sense of where we are. I felt that at this point, where the meeting was pushed out by a week, to have February numbers, I don't want to say they wouldn't have been useful, but I feel that having slightly more current numbers is more useful. I also want to make sure or mention that any expenses to date that were eligible to be charged to a grant have been moved off the general fund and have been posted to the grant. There will be some others forthcoming, in particular, some of the out-of-district placements. We will be moving to the IDEA grant as we get those invoices through the rest of the year, as an example. And so I also wanted to point out that the comparative that I have for this is, unfortunately, I don't have a comparative as of March 17th of last year, but it's as of March 31st of last year. But I did want to point out that even sort of with the couple week difference that we have between the current year and last year, that our spending is, we're at a point where we have not spent as much. We're in the 60 to 65%, I believe, versus closer to 70%, or maybe even a little more, a little less than that as of last year. And so I have to commend all the principals and Mr. Carnevale and everyone else who is eligible to spend money. They're doing a great job at showing restraint in terms of only ordering things that we absolutely need. While we would love to have sort of all the luxuries afforded in education, they are doing a fantastic job of providing an education to these kids on literally a shoestring budget. And so I don't know, I don't believe anyone wants me to go line by line, but I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any about any particular lines that they looked at.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the committee. Ms. Pava?
Oops. I have no questions.
Mr. Dakotas,
I have no questions either. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Ms. Farnworth?
Amy, thank you for that explanation about regarding the March 17th thing. I did notice and it makes sense. I do commend you and the staff for giving us the most up-to-date numbers as possible. It's going to be more and more important as we slide toward June 30 that we not go into the red with our budgeting. So you're certainly well aware of that. Are there any line items that you feel are in danger of heading us in that direction of having a deficit?
The only ones at the moment that I'm aware of are, well, as we spoke about, I believe, at a school committee meeting a few back, I will say, we had some unexpected legal settlements that we didn't have budgeted. I do, the extra COVID expenses, which mainly fall under building supplies and so forth, we can expect to be over. And some of our out-of-district placements, I think we're fairly close, but that potentially, if we have another student, another sort of serious student who needs to go out of district, that could push us over. As well as the only other one is statewide transportation. The contract that the state has with First Student was a very generous one, and one that we were not asked to participate in terms of bidding and negotiating. So that I expect that to be over, but whereas everyone else has been very diligent about not overspending, I think we're going to come in even, no gravy and no excess.
Okay, thank you.
And if we get any additional federal funding, will be even better.
Yeah. I will, now that you mentioned the bus contract, I did notice that Representative Cordovan from Portsmouth was one of the sponsors of legislation to ask the state to contribute and provide for the busing. I have an email over to her to see if there's any hope of that passing in this session, or what that could mean to districts. I haven't heard back from her yet, but I will continue to follow with her on that because it's as you know from all the bus discussions we've had, a topic that's near and dear to me.
Yes.
I do have one line item question.
Sure.
53410 police and fire details.
That is the school resource officer.
Okay, we didn't budget for that this year. Why are we paying it?
We shouldn't be paying it because that was supposed to be picked up by the town. And I remember that distinctly.
Yeah, we made a
By
very, came with the rest of the cuts.
I believe that those were invoiced and they were paid because it wasn't clear from the invoices. This is a conversation I believe I had with Deb, because she had asked the same question a few months ago. That the invoices were paid because it wasn't obvious from the way the invoices were set forth. And Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong in this, that it was actually for this school resource officer. Ultimately would need to be something we would have to try and adjudicate with the chief.
That's correct, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have one question, Amy. And if you go to page 4 under the grand total, it sort of gives you the FY21 where we were, and then where we were at a similar point in FY20. It looks like we have significantly more budget still to expend in FY21 than we had at this point in FY20. And then what I can't figure out is where that 2.4 million in the red comes from. Can you?
So the 2.4 million in the red is actually, I guess red, it shouldn't be red. That is actually to the good. If you take.
That's what I was trying to figure out, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a formatting issue, Dr. Larkin. I can certainly change the color. I can make it green or whatever. So if you take the FY20 actuals of the 22,373 as of March 31st last year, minus the 19,951.
Okay.
And so that's what I was speaking to earlier about how even though we're only a couple of weeks difference between 21 and 20, everyone in the district has done a great job at restricting spending as much as possible without, I'll say, too much injury to the students.
Right. Okay.
So that's a formatting issue. I'll correct that on the next one.
No. I kind of get it. I just wasn't sure if I was understanding that as actually a positive in a way because we have.
It is a positive, and I will make sure I switch the signs because it is misleading. It looks like we are overspent by 2.4 million.
Well, that was what and that was my fear was.
Yes, no. No, we've only spent roughly 20 million this year versus 22.4 million last year at this roughly the same time. Now, I will say, whereas this analysis for 21 goes through March 17th, I would expect that to go up some, by tomorrow. But I can tell you, we do not have $2.4 million worth of outstanding invoices pending through tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think for all of us to remember too, we laid off 20 something people.
Right.
Correct.
That's part of what you're seeing here.
That's correct.
In addition to the sound fiscal restraint, Amy, that you speak of, because I think it's important that we recognize that the folks working hard for our schools every day are doing so under very trying circumstances, and they're also being forced to only spend when it's absolutely necessary.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Again, thank you very much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the public, Mrs. Belcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Any questions from our administrators? Okay, again, another tour de force, Amy. I'm going to move on to our next item. I have to reorient my sideways agenda. Right. We're up to item number 8C, discussion possible vote, House Resolution 5485 Act allows school committee to add items to their agenda for the purpose of discussion only without having to publish notice of the additional item. Mr. Dakotas.
Thank you, Dr. Larkin. So the school committee discussed had a presentation from Representative Edwards. I spoke with Representative Edwards. I also spoke with Dr. Sanchioni, and I think I just wanted to solidify that as a body that we support this legislation. So Representative Edwards asked if the school committee could draft up a letter of support, send it up to the State House. So just want to reiterate the very simple bill, which the explanation is relating to state affairs and government open meetings. This act would allow school committees to add item or items to their agendas for the purposes of discussion only without having to publish notice of the additional item or items. This act would take effect upon passage. I don't know if we need to vote, but I think that's what's on the agenda if we just want to vote on this and give our support to this bill, which I think will only enhance our capabilities inside our meetings.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor to discussion. Ms. Farnworth?
You have to make a
Is someone
motion.
going to make a motion?
Make a motion first.
Okay, someone care to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve that bill H5485-2021.
Is there a second? All right, I will second for purposes of discussion. So I'm going to open up the floor to discussion. I forget who was calling on first. Ms. Farnworth, I think.
I have, I don't see a resolution in our packet.
Right. So I guess that's part of the reason why I didn't ask for a motion. So, I think we can certainly decide what we can express our opinion about whether or not we support the bill, and then we would typically draft a resolution and then vote to support that or approve that. So I guess I'll start off by saying, I certainly support the bill. I think it is a good idea. Then I think our next step would really be we can either vote to support the bill in theory, and then we would probably really need to bring a resolution for a final approval and vote next meeting. But if I'm the only one that supports it, then that's another story, and we probably wouldn't want to bring a resolution, or someone could bring a resolution to not support it. But I would support it. So Diane, any thoughts that you have?
I don't necessarily not support it. I'm just surprised that we're being asked to do this. It's not something we normally have done in the past, and not in my 4 years.
Well, we have supported, I think we've supported legislation. We've certainly,
Yes.
I believe so. I'd have to kind of paw through some, old school committee minutes, and you know how engaging that can be. And we have certainly taken resolutions on other matters of import to the district. So
We have. It's just, this is a first in my recollection that we've done for the legislature. And
well,
if
it is
that's something we're going to do, then perhaps we need to be probably being more active at looking at other bills as well, to ensure that, bills that concern school committees all get an equal look.
I think this is the first bill that I can recall that's actually addressed the governance of the school committee itself, as opposed to school districts or school policy, or any one of a number of other things that we may have an interest in. But this is actually addressing our specific governance, so it's a little unique in that regard. I don't think anything's come up in 4 years telling us specifically what we can and cannot do. That's all statutes that were passed long ago. So it is sort of unique in that regard. So anyway, Elaine, you have the floor. Anything else? Or Elaine, did I just do that?
Oh, I
Diane has the floor.
think it's important.
I'm sorry, say that again, Elaine.
I do support the bill. I think it's an important bill. It's the first one that I can remember coming before us that really addresses us and what we cannot do and what we should be able to do with the
Right.
agenda. I don't remember ever seeing one that addresses anything so close to us before.
Right. Diane, anything else?
No.
Mike, anything else? Or Mike?
Sure, you don't want to go back to Elaine?
You are Elaine. You are Elaine.
I'm sure everybody caught that.
Everybody
No,
gets a chance.
I think what you brought up was probably correct. If we wanted to just do something so we could send our support and then go back to the resolution at another meeting.
Okay. Diane?
No.
Okay. We can talk more if I call you Elaine. All right. So there is a motion on the floor, and any comments from our administrators? Or from the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
All right, so I'm going to ask, the motion is to support the legislation. And I would anticipate that by, if the motion succeeds, we would ask for Mike maybe to draft an actual resolution that we can vote on at our next meeting. So Elaine? Yay or nay?
Yes, yes,
Mike?
Yes.
Diane?
Abstain.
Okay, and I vote yes, so the motion passes. So Mike, would you be willing to draft a resolution for us that we can take up and then send on to the legislative delegation next meeting?
Sure, I'll do that. I'd like to send it to you guys for your approval, and upon approval, we can send it out.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. So next is item 9. C, the revised 2020-21 school calendar. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have a school calendar that's revised when you officially approved this calendar at inception. The last day of school was the 23rd of June. That remains the same for our middle school and high school students, but we need to add a day for our elementary students. So the changes that our elementary students would have their 180 day on June 24th. And we also need to add in a professional development day that's part of our teachers contract. And so in essence, that professional development day would be the 24th for the middle and high school teachers, and then the 25th for our elementary teachers. So it's a small change, but any changes to the calendar requires your approval. So I seek that this evening.
Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
There a
I'll
second?
second it. I'll second it for discussion anyway.
Okay. Any discussion from the school committee? Diane?
Has the NEA agreed to this change? I mean, I understand that we did have the lost day on the elementary end. But the professional development, it wasn't there before. Why is it coming on now?
It's part of their contract. They have a 184 day contract. That day wasn't scheduled, and it needs to be part of their.
Okay. That really was my question. It's to finish up their requirement. Okay.
I mean, it's sort of governed by statute and contract. By statute, we have to have 180 days. By
That's true for the students. It's the contract that speaks to the teacher's length of school year.
right. I mean, the students have to have 180 days by statute. The teachers have to have 184 days by contract.
Right. Sorry if I missed what you said.
That's good. It's okay. I never call you the right name anyway. So, Elaine, any questions?
Yeah, yeah.
Thoughts?
I do have a question. Why are we beginning school so late? First day of school is September 14th, which,
Well, we're on revising the current contract or the current calendar year, Elaine.
That's the next one, Elaine.
I'm on the wrong contract. I'm on the wrong calendar year. Thank you. All right. Mark up with the wrong calendar.
Well, I think
No.
you got to remember they did start a little late this year
Yeah.
because of COVID.
No, I know that, but
Yeah.
He sent me in the right direction. I'm okay.
No, Elaine, I'm asking you today to approve a change to the 2021 calendar. The next
One.
item, the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
agenda item is next year's.
I think she
Next year's
understands. That.
calendar.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So no other questions, Elaine?
Oh, no.
Okay, Mike?
No.
All right. Any questions for our administrator? Any questions for the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, so the motion has been made, it's been seconded, and we have discussed. You know what comes next. I will ask for a vote. Diane,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And there you go. So next is the thing Elaine and Diane have been waiting for. Item 9D, the 2021-22 school calendar for approval. Dr. Sanquioni.
Again, in your packet, you have a calendar proposal that we'd like to get out to make it public for our parents and our community for next school year. It mirrors the state calendar that all communities are being asked to adopt by the commissioner. First day of school would be September 7th, the 180th day would then come on. It would be June 17th, and you can see
Yeah.
every day in between. We have professional development days, distance learning days would be in that place. The vacations are set. And again, it's a statewide calendar we've been asked to adopt.
So we are being asked to adopt rather than being mandated to adopt this time around.
That is correct.
Because last year we got mandated, right?
Yeah, but the advantage of adopting this is for our many teachers that live in other communities and have children that attend other schools, it gives them the advantage of knowing that the days off will be consistent.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, so I'll open the floor up to discussion. Take myself first. I just like to comment that this has done what no other amount of lobbying has been able to do, which is to restore the sacred nature of the February vacation. That's all I really have to say about it. Diane?
Half day on the 23rd, that's a state recommendation of December, I'm sorry.
Nope, that is, we have to have 180 days, but you also have to have 990 hours of instruction. So we calculate that out two different ways. So it counts as a day because we meet the 990.
Okay. And I'm going to assume, and correct me please, that your last day for teachers being the 20th is because
17th.
they have more PD in their contract?
They have a 184-day year contract. So we have 3 days at the beginning of the school year, 180 days with the students, and 1 day at the end.
So in September, you have PD on September 1st and 2nd,
We
but not
start
the
on
3rd,
August 31st.
August 31st.
Yeah. So that's three.
Starting the 31st, and then you have 2 PD days on the 1st and 2nd,
Right.
and then you take Friday off for the long weekend. Okay. And we don't have any election days next year to worry about, right? Right.
Well, we may have the financial time referendum in like October.
I don't think we're going to close the schools for that.
We may have closed them already.
Oh, well. Right on point, Dr. Larkin. Thank you.
Okay, Elaine
I'm all set. Thank you.
and Mike,
I'm good. Thank you.
any questions from the public, Ms. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Any questions from our administrators? Okay, I'm going to ask for our vote. Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Dakotas,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so motion carries. All right. And we are up to item 9E, approval of gift of athletic gate THS boosters. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, I give you a rendition of a gate to be installed at the THS football field stadium, athletic stadium, I should say. This is being provided by the THS Boosters Club. Unfortunately, President Michael Brigham could not be with us this evening, although I presented on his behalf. I recommend you accept this with gratitude.
So the gate is up? I don't
Nope,
think
no, waiting for your approval to
I-
begin
okay.
construction.
That's I was by there yesterday. I don't think I saw it. Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion from the committee? Mr. Dakotas?
I just want to thank Mike Brigham and the Boosters Club. I looked at the picture. I think it's outstanding. It'll add a huge lift to the athletic complex. And I say absolutely yes and thank you.
Okay, Ms. Farnworth?
I just have a question. I see this artist rendition. Is this exactly how it will appear on ours? Will it have lights? And will we have to connect electric to it?
Yeah, what you see is what's looking to be installed, and they've factored that all into the construction and the cost that they have.
Okay. And I'm just envisioning it's definitely not level ground over there. Trying to see how that's gonna work.
I would assume who they're hiring to install this is gonna be able to level it off and make it, make it presentable.
Okay, and first of all, I am very grateful for the boosters. They've done a number of great things to support the athletics in Tiverton and continue to do so. I just want to make sure that something like this is in keeping with what we have available in the field to put it in. It is not level ground over there. We have the walkway leading up. Are we going to have to tear apart the walkway to accommodate this? Or is this going to be absolutely no cost to us to put this in? I'm just concerned.
Yep, I've had those same concerns, Ms. Farnworth. I've had that conversation with Mr. Brigham, and it'll bear no cost to us. And I'm confident that it will be installed in a way that'll be level, presentable, and will look outstanding when it's completed.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
And Mrs. Pavo?
All set. Thank you.
Okay, I just have one question, and I'm looking at the picture and I'm not sure if I'm just not seeing it right. So there's a big black oval over the gate. Is that part of the gate, or is that just something that they had to black out or something?
No, that's a welcoming sign. It says "Welcome to the stadium."
Like Tiverton High School athletic field or stadium, whatever. Yeah, that's what I thought to say.
And how high is that?
I don't have the dimensions with me, Dr. Larkin. Certainly can obtain those for you.
I don't think you're going to have to duck.
Well, that's, I was looking at it and sort of like, well, depending on how big that is, you couldn't then get anything through it if, other than a person who could, I guess, duck. Okay, well, I do appreciate the boosters and all the work they've done. Just kind of, I guess, the picture here in this case maybe isn't worth 1,000 words. Okay, any questions for our administrators, from our administrators? You're looking tired. Okay, any questions from the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, this for a vote. Mrs. Farnworth, yes.
I do apologize. Your question, as much as I made light of it, it raised a good question. What is the height of that sign, and could an ambulance and or fire truck get under there? Or is there other ways for those vehicles to enter our field?
They do. They enter through that other side. If you continue down North Brayton Road, there's gates where the ambulance and the police fire trucks come in that way.
Fire
field. Okay.
Here,
Is that correct, Dr. Sanquioni? Am I
You are
correct?
absolutely correct. Yes.
It might not be a bad idea to have the fire chief and the police chief take a look at it, though.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
But it'd be a terrible thing to put it up and then they come and they say, what were you thinking? So, all right, so I'm gonna ask for a vote. And I'm gonna make a motion that we an amendment to the original motion that pending approval by the fire and police chief.
I'll second that motion.
I'm gonna take a vote on the, or any discussion on the amendment to the motion. Gonna take a vote on the amendment. Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So the motion as amended is to approve the donation pending approval by the fire chief and the police chief. Take a vote on the final motion. Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Ms. Pavo,
yes,
and I vote yes. So please express our thanks to the boosters and let us know how it goes with the Chiefs and the Oval. All right. Next is, get back to my agenda. Item 9F, approval of the Tiverton School Committee calendar, April 2021 through June 2022. So Dr. Sanquioni.
Yep, following with your tradition of the first and, the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. Your calendar was approved through December of 2021, but it just, as we've approved calendars for next year, it just makes sense to map it out so you correspond to the school year. So we've added in, obviously, January through June.
Okay. I'll ask for motion to approve.
I will make that motion.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion for discussion. Mrs. Barnworth,
I disagree with Dr. Sanquioni presenting this calendar. We approved, this body meets on a calendar basis, is required to set its schedule prior to January 1st each year. One thing I do see on here is that you're making adjustments for February vacation next year. That's great, but that's something we can certainly take up in December, and I don't see the need to approve this calendar today.
okay. Ms. Pavo,
I have a, I have a question if I'm reading this correctly. We have 3 meetings in March, the 1st, which is the first Tuesday of the month, the 8th, which is the second Tuesday, and then the 22nd, which is the 4th. Am I missing something, or why are we having a March 1st meeting? Is it just something I'm overlooking? That's the first Tuesday of the month. And we're 2 and 4.
Well, that's because they took one out in February.
The fourth Tuesday in February is the February vacation week.
Right. So
So
we
just recognize this
there
budget
to have
season.
3 in March.
Yeah, because we realize it's a busy time of year.
okay. Anything else, Elaine?
No, I'm sorry. No, thank you.
Mr. Dakotas?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And I do not have any questions at this point. Any questions from any of our administrators? And any questions from the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. So we have a motion made and seconded and discussed. I'll ask for a vote. Mrs. Farmer,
I vote no in line with my objections.
okay. Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
I'm going to abstain. I really want to look at this again more closely.
Okay, I vote yes. The motion fails. So, all right, I guess we will take this up again in December unless there's a request from a member of the committee to put this on the agenda again, or Dr. Sinclair asks to place it on this agenda again, or some member of the public for that matter.
Well, if Elaine, if you want to take more time, would you let us know if you want to put it back on?
I will. I don't, I know it's a busy time in March, but I don't like carrying a meeting over from one month to another month because it's vacation. We have 2 meetings a month, and unfortunately in February, it doesn't fall that way because of school vacation. However, we have met over school vacation in the past, and maybe that's not convenient for people, but it's the way it has been done before. And go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I guess I kind of like to point out a funny contradiction or conflict of rules here. One is, and I think this is part of what Diane is getting at, is that I think it's part of the open meetings law, or is somehow part of a statute or regulation of some sort, that we are supposed to establish a calendar of meetings by December for the following calendar year. But calendar years don't correspond to school years. School years correspond to the agricultural season, frankly, which is, a holdover from the 19th century and before. So that's one thing. We're kind of required to do this. The second issue or the conflict is, I believe that I understand the necessity of that, because a public body could make its calendar so obscure, post so randomly that the public has no way of accessing kind of the activities of that body. On the other hand, it is well within our purview to move meetings, call meetings as we see fit, and cancel meetings as long as they are properly posted. So, our approving this meeting, this calendar does not necessarily, does not set it in stone or make it irrevocable. So in my view, I think it's okay to go ahead and kind of map out our schedule of calendar, or our schedule of meetings, but it is not what is actually required by the open meetings law statute. And just to sort of make things clear, the motion fails because it did not gain a majority. So when a motion is made, it must have a majority. When there are only 4 of us present, 2 fails, regardless of what, 2 in favor fails, regardless of what the other 2 do, if they abstain or if they vote against. So the motion failed. My advice is that we kind of think through this a little bit more and decide if we want to take it up again in order to make it consonant with the school district calendar versus wait until December. I don't think there is actually an appreciable difference in when we do it, because this calendar is always malleable. So I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts from the committee or public or administrators. Feel free to chime in or let Mrs. Delcourt know you want to talk, if so. Okay, I'm going to move to item 10, announcement scheduled meetings. So April 1st, we are meeting with the budget committee at 7. That is by Zoom.
Dr. Larkin, we're not posted as a school committee. So who will be attending the budget committee meeting? We can't have a quorum.
That is correct. I am planning on attending. Is anyone else planning on attending?
I am.
I was going to attend as well.
Mike? Did you have any plans?
No, I'm going to take the night back. But thank you for the offer.
Okay. All right.
Well, if we have 3, we'll have a quorum. And was Deb planning on attending also? Do you know?
I know that she was, we are able to attend as long as we do not conduct
Speak.
business
Business. Mhm.
as a body. So,
We can attend as citizens.
correct,
Okay.
unless I'm misinterpreting.
Well, it's not a live, it's not an in-person meeting. It's
Right.
on.
No.
Well, Elaine, if you want to go, I'll just not log in.
No,
I'll watch
Diane.
on video.
You go, I'll watch on video. I'll watch the
Sure, I
video.
mean, you spoke up
Yes.
first.
Jim, I'm positive.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So Dan and I will attend, and I believe we'll probably be before them again. So that's usually what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll need to be sure to post it next time. I don't think we should try and reschedule that meeting. And then our next scheduled meeting is April 13th. I guess we're talking about the accreditation, and we're getting a update on the prom and the graduation plans. And then the next meeting after that is April 27th. Peter, if we could, I thought we were going to map out a calendar based on the new date of the financial town referendum to make sure we have the dates now when we have to submit various things.
Did I not send that to you here?
You did.
Okay.
Okay. Can
You want to
we,
make that an agenda item?
yes, please include that in the packet for the
13th.
for, yeah, and, you know, and again, talking about the FY22 budget should be under old business anyway. So, any other comments or thoughts about announcements, scheduled meetings, or reports? Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.